Good afternoon. My name is Mahi. I am the core leadership team member for Kashmir Care Foundation. And today we are interviewing for our Everyday Legends, someone who is very close to my heart. Her name is Marryam H. Reshi. Marryam Reshi is a prominent Indian food writer and a food critic with a career spanning over 3 decades. Based in Srinagar, Kashmir, she's renowned for her deep exploration of Indian and Kashmiri cuisines, particularly their rich spice and food traditions. Her acclaimed book, The Flavor of Spice, delves into the cultural and culinary significances of spices in India and cooking and beyond. Beyond writing, she's also known for her eclectic grinders and her contribution to culinary tourism in Kashmir. She shares her gastronomic insights and experiences on her website, maryamrishi.com, and engages with the broader audience through her Instagram profile at Marryam Rishi. It's going to be a wonderful conversation. And with that, I'm going to say hello and let's move forward. So, without further ado, Marryam, you're known for your professional work for years and years. There are hundreds of interviews and blogs and articles. If people want to read about who you are as a professional, it's all there. So, I'm going to let people do that themselves. I want to know you as a person because the intent of this program is to go beyond that. It's peel the onion a little bit. So, talk to me and tell me if I were to
Right.
ask you,
And what is the,
who is Marryam Rishi?
I am a Goan girl who was, both my parents were Goan. We lived all over the country because my father was in Grinley's bank. And when it became untenable for me and my sister to be trundled along to Amritsar and then to Guwahati and then to Bombay, as it was called then. And we started out in Delhi, and before that, we were in Cochin. There were lots and lots of places. My parents just decided, let's just put them in boarding school, and that's how we went to Nainital, to a lovely, beautiful boarding school run by German nuns. That was the foundation. After that, my sister and I both did college in Delhi, and I started a series of very unexceptional jobs, secretarial and rubbish. I mean, being the keeper of records in some architect's office and God knows what else. And one fine day, I told my mother, who was widowed by then, I told her, she had come to meet us in Delhi, and she says, look, just get rid of all this job business because it's not suiting you. Just go and do your own thing, write, take photographs. So I said, okay. And I bought a camera. It was like 3,000 rupees at that time in the 80s. And
What?
everyone said, are you, uh, are you all right? Would you like to go and consult a psychiatrist? Like you had a regular job and you've kicked it up and you've bought yourself a camera. What are you going to do with it? So I said, take pictures. And they said, who's going to buy your pictures? I said, well, I'm sure somebody will. That was like, I don't know how many years ago, 86 or 87 or something. And I've never thought how I'm going to make ends meet, what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do tomorrow. But everything has sort of panned out, by the grace of the Almighty. What else can I say? And I've even like in the food writing space, which took place a little bit after my marriage, actually, because after I got married in 87, it was no, sorry, 91. It was not possible for me to go traveling and things, dump my husband in a corner and then just hook off to Kutch and Kerala and what have you. So that's when I seriously thought of altering my line, and I became a food writer. And by, as you know, fate or the Almighty, whatever superpower you want to say, I became a bit well known by being a food critic.
Um, in terms of transitioning from the regular journalism that you were doing writings, um, food writing, how did that happen? Did you always want to do
Because
food writing is my thing. How did that happen?
never, never, never. I was a journalist, and then I was writing for a newspaper, a pink newspaper. I mean, a economic like something that uh, it was not political news, it was just economic news. Today, the market share has gone up or down or whatever it was. And I was writing for that in the features department. And one day, the person who used to do the food column resigned. And so I was asked, would you like to? Do you think you could have a hand in it? So I said, I thought to myself, my goodness, food is something that you eat, it's not something that you write about. But that I've spent the last several decades, and I write only writing about food. I wrote about nothing else. And I actually became a bit well known, and I've even written books and cookbooks, and I mean a book about spices, and which has gone into its something. I don't want to say something and it's not true. I don't really keep in touch with what reprint my book has gone into, because I'm not a narcissist and I don't think I ever will be. But it's something like 12 reprint or something, which is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I actually saw you in Gordon Ramsay's. There was a series by Gordon
Yes,
Ramsay, and
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
and he had a episode in Delhi. And I sat here, I was like, oh my God, that's Marryam because you were there. So that says something. I don't think you have to say anything. Your work and the body of work and the impact you have created themselves say a lot. Um, Coming back to something personal, you have moved from when I knew you used to be based out of Delhi, and now you are
Yes.
mostly based out of Kashmir. So there's been a
No, that
transition.
is, yeah. I got married in Kashmir in 1991. And when my parents-in-law, my beloved parents-in-law, when they were alive, we used to all live in Safa Kadal, a short walk from your Malan, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, your parents' home, basically. Very, very short walk, less than a kilometer. We used to live over there, and after they passed on, we built our own house in the suburbs, and that's where we live.
But Mariam, for someone who has had such an eclectic upbringing, you've traveled immensely globally as well as within the country. And of all the places you could have chosen, you chose Kashmir. And I know it's a very special place in many ways, but there had to be a period of adjustment. I know you also speak fluent Kashmiri, so let's get a demonstration of that for 2 seconds.
क्या वनोबा so one man which is kashir yot karan yum soid which is kashir as kashir mas asan which is kashir karat san soid.
तुझे म्यान का असल कशर बोला.
I'm not sure whether that's true or not. Either you're being very modest or
नहीं
I'm
नहीं.
better at speaking
No,
Kashmiri
you
than I
got it
thought.
really good.
But my entire family, my uh, parents and my late wonderful, fantabulous parents-in-law, I know that most people have huge agendas, and I hate my mother-in-law and my father-in-law is good for nothing, etc. But I had the most fantabulous parents-in-law. They were my lifeblood. I mean, I don't think that any other person could have ever had such a warm, such a wonderful, such a friendly life with their parents-in-law as I have had with mine. That's the highlight. That has been the highlight of my life, because now they are no more. But while they were alive, I mean, we really used to bond, and how.
That's wonderful. So, as as incredible as this journey, so I think the other question I kind of wanted to ask was, it's a globally relevant question for all girls. So you were brought up outside of Kashmir, and then you moved into a society which is slightly more conservative and slightly more, uh,
Slightly,
na-
only slightly.
yes, yes. So, uh, my question is this, particularly for the girls of Kashmir. You know, we are literally just coming into our own. It's only been maybe 20, 30 years. Uh, Education has been around, but girls kind of taking charge of their own lives has just been a trend in the last 2 decades, I think. And there's still so much work to be done. But when you talk of yourself and the transition you made in your life, not in just in career, but also socially making a dramatic move, there must have been challenges, both from maybe in your own circle, maybe Delhi, maybe, but mostly from Kashmir. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was the first 5 years of Marryam Rishi in Kashmir?
Uh, it was not easy, but that was because we had no chairs and tables and we had no furniture in our house. So everything had to be done on the floor, like your house in Navakadal, for example. There was like one bed in the entire house, and that was bought for our marriage by my dear sister-in-law, who wanted to give us a wedding present and got us this like a bed and like side tables with it, which was very, very charming because I mean, which Nanad, I don't know how many Kashmiri speakers you'd have on this channel. Do you have Kashmiri
Yeah, of
speakers on
course.
this
This
channel?
is for yeah. This is Kashmir Care Foundation for Kashmir,
Okay, 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 okay,
Kashmiris and
okay.
Kashmiri men and women particularly. Yeah,
Lovely. Okay. So everyone would speak Kashmiri, right? Yes. Okay.
yeah.
So my Zerm actually bought us like a bed and like bedside tables and a dressing table for our room. She did up our entire room for us with furniture, with wooden furniture. And that was the only room in the house that had wooden furniture. And it was only bought for me, basically, because she knew that Nyebrim Chu, ye tagi na, Pathar Shogun किया है, which I thought was, I mean, who does that? To
I
get
mean,
inside
that's who we are
someone's
as people, right? We are extremely hospitality driven, and
hospital,
you were family, so of course.
hospitality driven, but you would bring out nunchai with five kinds of chochin, if you know what I mean. But you would not
Yes, absolutely.
know that and know to buy a bed for a boykakin who may not be able to sleep on the floor. That takes another level of imagination, especially when you yourself have not moved out of Kashmir and can only speak Kashmiri. That's the only language that you can communicate in. For that huge leap is, I mean, it's commendable.
Absolutely. And how was the transition socially for you?
It was, I mean, I would be lying if I said it was not difficult because in the first year, I could not understand very much. I mean, I couldn't understand any Kashmiri at all. And people would come from far. And yeah, we had a nikah in Agra where my husband lived and where we spent the first couple of years of our married life. And we had the nikah ceremony was only my mother, my sister, my two parents-in-law, and that was it, nobody else. And there was a Qazi, of course, and there was one gentleman who was a friend of my husband, friend and colleague of my husband, naturally from Kashmir. He was a witness. That's it. There was nobody else at the wedding, at the nikah ceremony, and there was no reception afterwards because we assumed that the reception would be held once we got into Kashmir.
Good.
And my mother and my sister were over there. That's from my
And
side.
so when you moved home and you kind of integrated into Kashmir, other than the language, how did it feel?
You sit on the floor, you eat on the floor, you cook on the floor, you wash dishes on the floor, you wash clothes on the floor. When you do latsul, the latsul is like 3 inches long, so you have to squat on the floor like there's no long broom. You know what I mean? No long handled broom. So you're forced to squat on the floor and then just go step by step, taking the thought out on onto a teen soup or something of that sort. But you move on the floor, like on your haunches, so to speak. And for someone who's never done it in their lives, I'm telling you, very, very difficult. That was probably, I mean, I blush to say so, but that was my biggest challenge. The rest was as easy as pie. My parents-in-law did not speak one word of English or Hindi. My father-in-law could manage a little bit of tuta-futa Urdu, not my mom-in-law, but they were such fantabulous, fantabulous people. I have like your grandparents, for example, the same generation, the same
Yeah.
care, the same. I mean, they were just absolutely fabulous people, and they
So,
never looked down on me. They never sort of shortchanged me. They never, I mean, when in the fullness of time, when I got
yeah.
two other Kashmiri Darkakans, they never compared them favorably to me or me unfavorably to them. Nothing, never, never. And
I think
everyone
the
who
re
came to our house would always know that, like, this is the Bud his nosh, and everyone gave me like, yeah, much more yes than I've ever got in my lifetime.
so Mariam, having the illustrious career you've had, I mean, academically, if I were to look at your career academically, there's this stack of books that you've written. There's this 3 decades of career in food writing and journalism. I have been very lucky to be part of your little vignette that you wrote about Kashmir, and the photo was in Times, I think. I mean, you are a scholar through and through. And then there's that side of you. And then the other side, which the reason I talked about our everyday mundane things in Kashmir is because we are not just one side. We have multiple facets to our personality, and I love this facet of your personality so much because it kind of segues into my next question. So, um, how does humility stay with you? How do you stay humble?
I'm
Because
not humble. Okay, okay, I'll tell you something. My father-in-law, my late father-in-law, if there was a competition between who I loved more, my father-in-law or my mother-in-law, it would might go a little bit in favor of dad. Abbajan, we used to call him, like you used to call your grandfather Abbajan. He had his karkhana of doon comb. I mean, doon lakdi. Like, he used to make
yeah,
little trinket boxes was his specialty, but he used to make other small stuff by the time I joined the family. Otherwise, before that, he had a very big karkhana upstairs in our Kearney, and he used to employ chartabojis, etc. But by the time I got married, there were no chartabojis, there was just Abajan, and one of my brothers-in-law or the other would sometimes help out in things. So one day he was shouting and shouting. So I went into his karkhana. The kitchen and the karkhana were sort of like in adjoining rooms, perpendicular. So I heard him shouting and throwing things, etc. So I just went into his karkhana. I said, "Kya dalil cho Abajan?" So he says, "Look, look at what your brother-in-law has made, your drui." And he shows me a little piece of walnut wood, shaved or planed or whatever it was, and he held it up in a very derisive way. Now, I could not see anything wrong with it. So I said, "Ye sha bada asal mein basan." So he said, "Near, near, guts the fan," and he threw the bloody thing. It
thing.
nearly hitting my eye. So I picked it up from the floor and I looked at it and said, "But what is wrong with it?" So he said, "Bring it over here, I'll show you." And he had this set square, okay? After, of course, calling me blind and dumb and stupid and near yetit and whatnot, he had this set square. So he put the offending piece, this, it's a like trinket box. So you can imagine
Yeah,
3 inches by 4 inches or something of that sort. He put it against the set square, and there was like one suit, you understand suit, right? So there
one
was
degree. Yeah.
one suit smaller.
Okay.
He could see that one suit with his eye without a set square. And I looked at it and I said, "This is perfect." What's wrong? But because he was a Karigar, he could see that one suit less. And it just not irritated him, it inflamed him to such an extent that he closed down the karkhana for that particular day and just walked out of the house in a huff. Like, that was Abajan's perfection. I mean, you can only admire it.
So what I was really asking is, having accomplished what you have accomplished, the level of humility and modesty you maintain has
Yeah,
also
like
been,
that. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you about my
yeah,
father-in-law. He could see 89 degrees rather than 90 degrees and get upset about it. And I, with all my education and literacy, I could not see that. So I mean, you think that I'm this or that, but he thought that I was as stupid as the person who had. cut, like made 89 degrees instead of 90 degrees. So we all have our own perceptions of what is the correct thing, what is the high water mark, etc. All of us have our own perceptions. Like
Absolutely.
people would look at me and say, oh, she's not so good looking. Why has she got married to a Kashmiri who's so good looking, etc. People have said that, lots of people. So it's just one of those things. I mean, whatever prism through which you're looking at, that will determine what you see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, on the trajectory of your career, how has this transition from regular journalism to food journalism and then moving from Delhi to Kashmir, it's my movement around in my life has forced me to grow in places I didn't think I needed to grow. Have you felt that you grew with this transition? I mean, how has steeping yourself in the world of food and spices maybe changed you or grown, helped you grow you slightly differently than you would have in a regular journalism career?
Okay, again, it's my father, and I'm so sorry to bore you with
No,
stories
it's
from
okay.
him.
No, no, please. It's lovely.
One day, my Baj Zerm and my Zermi had come from where they used to live in Rajuri Kadal. They had come to spend the night. And my Lokut Zerm, who was then unmarried, she was also there. There was my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my husband, me, and my two Druis. I think they were not married at that time. So I just asked, someone had made something, like one person had made one dish. That's what all of us used to do when Baji, that's my elder Zerm, and Bubli, my younger Zerm, and I were all in the kitchen. Then we'd each make one dish of our choice, and we'd just sort of like, shove it on the dastar khan when it was time to eat with no fuss. And I've made this, and you have must have more of that. Nothing of that sort. It was just anonymous. So one day, because I was a food writer, I asked my father-in-law in front of everyone. I said, "Tushu tagan, tushu parzanavan kemi ronmut kya?" So he said, so everyone else said no. Like mom said no, I can't tell, and dad says, "But of course." So I said, "How?" He says, "Look, Bubli puts chord matswangan and chord til. Baji puts, like, she'll just make very little gravy. You will make something with, you'll put more sabzi and less meat in it because you don't like meat. Huh. And my wife cooks the best. So we all shouted.
Smart guy.
But like, I was amazed that a guy who, if you ask him to write or something, of like, if you ask a giraffe to climb a tree or a fish to ride a bicycle or something, you'll be asking the wrong thing. So if you ask him, what is your like erudition, he'd probably not be able to explain himself very well. But if you ask him who has cooked the food today, he'd be able to tell you, and he'll also be able to tell you on what basis. And that's when the idea of becoming a food writer struck me. That was very early on in my marriage. I got married in 91, and this could have been possibly 95 or 94 or something that we had this conversation. And then I said, if there is such a thing, then I should also be able to master it.
Yeah.
And that's when I tried to start dissecting food. I don't
Yeah.
think I would ever have been able to reach my father-in-law's uh, taste buds because they were very, very advanced, at least for Kashmiri food. But and there were quite a few things that I used to offer him in Delhi, and there was, I can't remember what, and he just took a bite and said, you should soak salmon his. I can't remember what it was, but at least he could at once identify it with salmon and chokir, which, like,
Easy.
who else who has not had very varied experiences in food, uh, who else would be able to do that, to define something at the drop of a
Yeah.
hat?
That's wonderful. So now that we're talking about food, and you have been writing about food for 30 years, give me a little bit of a take on Kashmiri food, particularly Vazwan, and everyday Kashmiri food, actually, and then Vazwan.
Yeah, I am very taken by Kashmiri food like butter and sew. These two things, kunti halat gatsi asan, batti gatsi asan, to seunti gatsi asan. Uh, how do you assume is equal to Mars, sorry to say, and you have to have big fulls of Mars, much larger than what you would have in the rest of the country. And that too is half of it is taste and half of it is economy. So that for a large family, say of 6 or 8 people, you can buy dod pav of at least in the old days when money was not as easy to come by as it is now. Uh, to run a household with one person's income and a large household, you'd have to do a few tricks, and unless of course you were like a very well-to-do person, etc., and we were not, you would have to balance your books by doing stuff like cooking vegetable with meat, and everyone knew that they had to take one piece of meat, and there was no such thing as two pieces, and only my husband, who was the young eldest brother, and my father-in-law would get two pieces, and all the rest of everyone else would take one piece. And I am not fond of meat, so I used to only take the vegetables. And people used to say, but why are you not eating? Do you not? I mean, they couldn't figure out that there was such a human being who did not like meat. I cannot stand this stuff, and now I've become almost completely vegetarian.
Like I grew up in South India, you've traveled to Kerala so much. The spice profile of food there is so different from the spice profile of food in Kashmir.
Yes.
When you compare and contrast, what do you think you love about Kashmiri food? And I know you've written a lot about the spices across the world, but tell me a little bit that pulls you back to Kashmiri food.
There is a very straight grid. It's very, very well defined, that grid. And you can't go left and you can't go right. You have to stick inside the grid. And I mean, the grid being this much of mutter and this much of mas or this much of sabzi and this, like, what are the vegetables that you can eat with meat, which cook well with meat, if you know what I mean. Like if you put green peas, that's my favorite mutton tamas. I just love
Yes.
that dish because I just like love it. That's all. And um, so the grid is there has to be meat, there has to be gravy, and there has to be a vegetable. Now, which vegetable you use, which vegetable can you not use? And someone like when we were living in Safa Kadal, now we don't. After my parents-in-law passed away, I mean, like then everyone just went their own separate way. So when people used to come to Burgrau Rocker, we'd even if they didn't sit and have a cup of tea with us or something, because burgrawing rocker, you have to go around the whole city in one day and just keep on think the one question that everyone used to grab them by the collar and ask them, "Tohi kya suncha?" Imagine someone comes to your house to give you an invitation for a wedding and you ask him, what have you cooked in your kitchen today? What? I mean, it's only a Kashmiri who could get away with asking such an absurd question. And then the guy used to say, Ashu as Gazar Tamaz. And then we'd let him go, of course. And then we turned around to each other and begin rolling our eyeballs. Have you heard what he said? He eats Gazer and Mars. He must be mad. His family must be mad. What kind of a combination is this? And we tear the guy to bits. Or somebody else would come and say, we've cooked this thing and that thing. And we'd always have a take on any vegetable, whichever the whoever came to our house, or I mean, even if they just came to pay us a visit or something, we'd ask them, "What have you cooked today?" Just out of interest, not out of a prurient interest, like how much does your husband earn, not in
Yeah,
that state at all, but just out of like, how, what's the weather outside the house and that kind
yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
We'd ask, and we'd always have a very strong opinion on, if you say matar tamaz, hey, ye sab mudur gatsan, asam matar sak mudur asan, we as kharan ye matar tamaz as joiner ranan. I mean, it's just food, and no one's forcing my food down your throat. So why are you getting so agitated? But it's a very, very emotive issue in Kashmir, if you notice. And
Absolutely.
they'll, they'll always ask you what you've cooked, and when whatever you say, they reserve the right to tear you behind your back to shreds, because this guy, their food must be aabdar or something of that sort. Like, hey, तुमचे aabdar से तमीज से ज़्यादा मसाल वसाला त्रावन किया. I mean, we'd
You-
we'd always have some snide remark to make. Sorry, you were saying?
No, no, Mariam, you know what's wonderful? I have to remind our audience that Mariam was not born and brought up in Kashmir. You are the daughter of by choice. You're the daughter of Kashmir by choice. You decided to make it your home. And then a lot of us, I grew up outside a lot, but a lot of us pretend that, we do our jobs, we go to school, we come back, we have a very um, elite way of living our lives. When fundamentally, as you have looked in and surgically dissected it, knowingly or unknowingly, everything that you're saying is literally around still. It's common parlance. This is how people relate to each other.
Yes,
Food,
yes,
critique of food, talking about food. I, we, KCF is a platform where we talk a lot about education and changes and growth and progress and technology. But the reason I wanted you to be here really was I wanted to showcase a Kashmir from perspective of someone who adopted Kashmir. Kashmir as a culture, Kashmir as a food, Kashmir as a society. And coming back to something more somber, you've seen the evolution of Kashmir society. It went from the beautiful place used to take photos of mountaineering, then through the
yes.
crisis, and then where we are. You've also seen the kids and girls, particularly, grow around you. You've seen the progress. The question is maybe twofold. One, what is your perception or what is your expectation of intellectual and academic growth for young kids in Kashmir as you see them evolve? And secondly, when you look back, I think your transition was most driven by coincidences. Would you encourage someone who doesn't want to do a typical medical or engineering field to maybe pick up journalism and specialize in food writing or the choices you have made? What would you say to a young adult?
I would not tell them that because I am a food writer, I'm holding a gun to your temple and you have to
Absolutely.
become a food writer. No. Whatever someone is interested in, but it's not that medicine is the only, like when you ask a young girl, like I have nieces and nephews, when I ask them, they just shrug and say doctor, but they're
Yeah,
not saying it with, their eyes don't sparkle at the thought of being a doctor. They shrug their shoulders and say doctor, as if, I hope that's politically correct enough for you. I do hope so. I do hope you're going to be impressed with my answer. So it tells you
yeah,
this is completely fake. And I've seen this so many times. And now I have stopped asking people what they want to do. There's Kashmir, we have a lot of lacunae over here. One is
yeah,
that there's very little awareness of things that you can do as a life choice. I mean, as a professional choice. Very, very. Nobody tells you. I mean, there's something like seeds, to grow rice and whatnot. You can actually study seeds. You can actually do stuff with them, not bioengineering, but a little bit of saving heirloom rice varieties and things. I mean, all this is never, I have not heard it being spoken about, and that's a being a food writer, that's one area that I am interested in, and other states are doing it, and other states seem to me, that could be a very personal opinion, seem to me to be more forward looking in that they're saving their black rice and other heritage species, they're saving them to maybe grow them at a later date in time when there are a different set of market forces apply. We are not even thinking about that, but I could be mistaken because whomever I've spoken to just looked blankly at me when I broached the subject, but it's entirely possible that I've spoken to the wrong people.
I wouldn't claim to know much, but I know the Agriculture University is trying to initiate a lot of wonderful programs. But to your comment, definitely lack of awareness of alternatives to medicine and engineering
Yes,
is severely
yes,
there. That's why
yes.
I think we at Kashmir Care Foundation decided that there was a unmet need in society where what we do is as a platform is get people together across the diaspora, people who have made different choices, gone beyond just medicine or engineering, are in corporate, are in biotech, are in film, art, history, and hence you. Hopefully, someday we can actually sit down and have a detailed conversation with you, maybe as a part of our webinar panel. On a different note, as you look back at your life and look at your immense accomplishments, what would you tell the
Um,
little girl when
which,
you were in
which
high school?
immense accomplishments? I'm sorry, I'm looking around. I can't see any accomplishments. I mean, immense ki to baat hi nahi hai, but I can't see any. Anyway, go on.
No, so what I you made me smile. That's what I love you so much. I think that I will definitely attach a link to your website and the things that you've written. And so I don't have to even explain the word events. But, growing up, when I was growing up, and personally relating to the fact that teenagers, young girls at the age of 15 to 18, even young boys, we don't really know much. And there's so much happening in the world. It's so overwhelming. There's a lot of insecurity. So I think back when I think back to my 17, 18, 15. Sometimes I thought I was on top of the world. Sometimes I thought the world was on top of me. And it was a very tumultuous time emotionally, I think. And I would want to say to my younger self, it's going to be okay. But I know when you look back at your life and I'm hoping that you have something that you want to say to your younger self because I'm really hoping after this discussion, the young men and women who listen to us understand that it's a journey, right? So what would you tell your younger self if you were to meet your younger self today?
I would say just delve into living. Don't don't worry about stuff that you can't control. Don't worry about the balance of payments in IMF or the World Bank, for God's sake. Just take every day as it comes, and what you can do that, and try and do it to the best of your ability. Don't do it to the best of the neighbor's daughter's zerms, their kakins, hushes ability. Please don't, because that person has another ability and you have your own ability. So whatever you can do and whatever you are interested in doing, and also figure out what is a good lifestyle choice for you in terms of work, and what is a little side job that you can do in terms of a hobby or something which can or may not earn you money, but which will just keep your spirits up. Because some of us do. I was very lucky to be a food writer, to get taken to the US and to Australia, New Zealand, and France, and I can't even think of all the countries I've been to. I have been very lucky uh, to eat, to taste the food and look at the ingredients of various countries around the world. Maybe your job will be more sedentary. Maybe it will not make you travel. Maybe you'll earn so much of money, more than I ever did, because I didn't earn that much. Um, and you can go on yourself and travel around to a few countries, I mean, whichever you want to see the aspects of that country that you want to see. So if you're interested in needlework, if you're interested in art, then you just go to art exhibitions in, say, for example, Holland or France or like Western Europe, where there are very, very rich cultures of art. You just go over there and like study, not study in the sense of learn, but just look at what various artists of various schools and various periods have done, and just like that's your life. And then you try and do whatever you have. I know I'm saying something very
No,
convoluted,
no,
but
no, no, it's fine. I,
go to Mr. Google. I mean, and my time there was no Google, and like there was no internet, for example. So every we had to walk from one place to another to go to a library and to take out a book from the library, sit down with it, etc. People of today don't have all those disabilities, so they can just do basically whatever they want.
wonderful. And is there anything that you want to leave us with? A message for the young kids, the message for us, message for your daughter, message for Kashmir and the young people in Kashmir in general?
Young people of Kashmir, yes, do not be hardened. Do not accept other people's opinions as yours. Critically analyze everything. You don't have to do it loudly. You don't have to go to your mother and father and aunt and uncle, etc., and do battle with them and saying, Sachu galat bana, and etc. No, just whatever someone tells you, smile, nod your head, and then covertly go into a silent space like your kitchen or whatever, storeroom or whatever, and analyze what they've told you and find whether it has a resonance with you. And if not, why not? And then, like, let it stay with you for half an hour, 1 hour, whatever. Turn it around in your mind. And if they tell you something, don't just pounce on it and say, yes, yes, this is it. Or on the other hand, don't say, "Oh, I hate my uncle because he smokes too much and he leaves all his cigarette ash all about the house, and my mother has to clean it. So if he has told me to become a doctor, I'm not going to because I hate." I mean, no knee-jerk reactions. Just analyze something. Be aware that the same way that the greats of philosophy and humanity and spirituality, etc., everyone was a human being, same as you are. So if they can do something, so can you. So just think big in your mind and learn how to study. Not your course books. No, I'm not talking about that. Study life. Look at, like, for example, Dior coin. I have to take a very stupid example because I'm wedded to my kitchen and all my neon sortas are all made of Dior coin. And then try and look for Dior coin in the landscape in and around Srinagar, and then you'll see it, and then you'll think of, like, just make the connection between this neon sorta that I have is made of Dior coin, and that this hill over here near my house or far away from my house or next to my grandfather's house, that hill is Diorca in the whole thing. So just sort of make little equations in your mind and make that a habit, because try and be self-taught, because some things that you're taught in class, in a classroom, won't stay with you, because you just have to mug them up and spit them out at the end of the term so that you get good marks in your exam. But learning to think is a huge, huge asset which can take you to the top of the world, and you can really be a champion and you can win at life, basically. Just to learn how to learn and learn how to think. And you don't require a book or a guide or some private tuition or Dahro Pipe, EMS Dune, etc. Nothing of that sort. You just do it yourself, and you keep on learning how to learn a little bit more. That's what I
I
have.
love that. I'm gonna steal that, Mariam. Learn how
You
to
have
learn
to
and learn
you
how to
have to
think.
tell Yeah, you have to tell everyone whom you meet to learn how to learn and learn how to think. Because
I love that.
now we're
Yeah.
paying uh, too much of reliance on textbooks and teachers who mispronounce words and things because maybe English or Kashmiri or Hindi or Bengali or French or German is not their first language. So stuff is apt to get misrepresented. But if you are teaching yourself, like, why is water wet, and then you sort of try and do a deep dive into why is water wet, or something that, like, why do I like this apple and why do I hate that, something like that. Try and, focus and just let the just sort of like dig
Curiosity drive.
over.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I am going to ask you if there are any few words you want to leave us with. Is there anything else you want to add to the conversation?
Absolutely not. I've said whatever I've wanted to. And just study the minutiae around you, the minute little, why does this bird sing like this? What is that tree over there? Why is this tree? Why does it look like a chinar and why is it not a chinar? And those kind of things. Just sort of puzzle it out in your mind. Try, I mean, if you can, if you're interested, find the answer within yourself, or, like, Mr. Google is omnipresent. So in my time, you had to go to the library to look for an answer. Now you don't even have to do that. Everyone carries a cell phone. So just try and gain knowledge from being by yourself. That's something I'd certainly learned from your dad. He was a great
Uh,
one for introspecting, and he used to encourage everyone around him to spend a lot of time on their own and introspect. And that can only
yeah.
be a very good thing for you.
No, yeah. I mean, delighted to have had this conversation. Thank you so much, Mariam. I'm really hoping that this is the beginning, and the next time we have probably a webinar or a longer spotlight conversation that I can have you. But before I end, I wanted to remind our viewers who I'm talking to today. Um, Her name is Marryam Reshi. Marryam is a prominent Indian food writer and a critic with a career spanning over 3 decades. She's based in Srinagar, and she's renowned for her deep exploration of Indian and Kashmiri cuisine, particularly their rich spice traditions. Her acclaimed book, The Flavor of Spice, delves into the cultural and culinary significance of spices in India and beyond. She shares her gastronomic insights on her website, maryamrishi.com, and engages with the broader audience through her Instagram profile at Marryam. And if you want to talk to her, if you want to follow her, please let us know.